My best friend and I married into the Prime Minister's household together. She married the unruly young master, I married the gentle and refined eldest son. Who would have thought these two dog brothers each had a white moonlight in their hearts? My best friend couldn't take it anymore and snapped, "I'm divorcing that bastard." I clapped my hands. Divorce? If you're divorcing, then I'm divorcing too, while those scoundrels were losing their minds. The two of us were enjoying ourselves at the male brothel, until the door was kicked open. The young master's eyes were bloodshot, while the elder master pinned me against the wall, his gaze dark and profound. "Sieruoxuan, do you really think I'm some kind of good person?" Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. Jiyu Feng had run off to see his childhood sweetheart again. My best friend threw herself into my arms, sobbing. "Xian, I want a divorce. Divorce, absolutely divorce." Looking at her swollen, red-rimmed eyes, my heart ached terribly. The expensive cream I just bought would surely be scooped up by this little wretch again. How infuriating. She lifted her head and gazed at me with pitiful, pleading eyes. "But I'm scared to go alone. Xian, will you come with me to file for divorce?" I thought for 2 seconds and decisively agreed. "Good. Lu Xiaoxiao and I have known each other for 18 years, we've shared meals and weddings together. Divorce? Naturally, we'll do that together too." Overwhelmed with emotion, Lu Xiaoxiao buried her head against my collarbone and rubbed her face there messily. "Xian, you're the best to me in this whole world." "More," I chuckled slyly. "But you go first. I'll follow in half a month. Mother-in-law's been planning to gift me one of her rouge shops these past few days." Lu Xiaoxiao stopped crying and began shaking my shoulders vigorously. "Damn, why didn't mother-in-law give me one? Sieruoxuan, you're secretly outdoing me." Lu Xiaoxiao and I are the notorious bad girls of the capital. The two handsome sons of Prime Minister Jiyu unfortunately caught our eye, so my uncle the emperor casually issued an imperial decree arranging our marriages. We thought from then on we'd enjoy a blissful life with handsome husbands, sisterly bonds between wives, and joining forces to tease our in-laws. No matter how carefully we planned, we never anticipated that both Jiyu brothers had their own white moonlight in their hearts. At first, neither Lu Xiaoxiao nor I took this matter seriously. With our beauty, intelligence, and charm, how could we fail to conquer two mere men? Until her husband Jiyu Feng climbed over the wall for the nth time to meet his childhood sweetheart. My husband Jiyu Zhon has a gentle and upright temperament, so he would never do something as shameless as his younger brother Jiyu Feng, who directly ran off to secretly meet his white moonlight. But this man has a secret study filled with nothing but portraits of his white moonlight. He goes in there to stay for half a day every few days, more frequently than ancestral worship ceremonies. How can I tolerate this? After making the firm decision to divorce, Lu Xiaoxiao and I began plotting how to thoroughly loot the Prime Minister's residence before leaving. Though neither of us was short on money, the thought of Jiyu Zhon and Jiyu Feng using these treasures to woo their so-called white moonlight made us sick to our stomachs. If we couldn't live comfortably, those scoundrels shouldn't either. Lu Xiaoxiao eagerly set off to take inventory of the Prime Minister's treasury. My mother-in-law had no idea what she was scheming and thought she wanted to help manage the household accounts, praising her endlessly for finally becoming sensible. Even someone as thick-skinned as Lu Xiaoxiao couldn't help but blush for once. Swearing not to badmouth my mother-in-law to me again before the divorce was finalized, I also returned to my room and began rummaging through boxes and cabinets to pack my things: phoenix-patterned gem hairpin, agate jade pendant, emerald bracelet. I never realized until I started cleaning Jiyu Zhon had given me so many nice things, but these were often gifts he gave me out of guilt after missing his white moonlight again. In the midst of my frantic tidying, I suddenly felt an arm wrap tightly around my waist. "Xian, what are you doing?" It was Jiyu Zhon who embraced me from behind, his lowered lashes brushing against my neck, his warm breath cascading. Flustered, I quickly lowered my gaze and replied meekly, "Xiaoxiao took a liking to the bracelet you gave me, so I lent it to her for a few days." "Haha, are Lu Xiaoxiao's matters all more important than mine?" "Not at all." It's unclear whether Jiyu Zhon actually believed me or not. He remained silent, only to begin kissing me intermittently. Even though this eldest son of the Jiyu family had someone else in his heart, it didn't stop him from being excessively fervent in such matters. Only, today would likely be the last time. Thinking this way, I actually calmed down and took the initiative to hook his chin, giving it a playful bite. Jiyu Zhon narrowed his eyes and pushed me onto the bed. In the brief moments of remaining rationality, I couldn't help but think this eldest son of the Jiyu family, who usually appears refined and delicate, was actually nothing of the sort. The rustling of clothes startled me awake from my dream. Opening my eyes, I saw Ji Yuzhan already dressed and about to push the door open to leave. My heart tightened. And I almost immediately guessed that he was heading to that secret room again. It's laughable to say, but though Ji Yuzhan and I have been married for over 3 years and have shared many intimate moments, we've rarely spent the night together like an ordinary couple. Every time he would leave for his secret room in the middle of the night, that room full of portraits fascinates him more than I, a living person, ever could. In the past, I would console myself, let it be with money and companionship. Why must I obsess over this man's affection, Ji Yuzhan? But at this moment, perhaps it was the thought of divorcing this man. I gathered my courage, got out of bed, and tugged at his sleeve pleadingly. Don't go there, okay, stay with me tonight, just for tonight. Yet Ji Yuzhan merely turned his head and gave me a faint glance. Xian, you should get some rest. He pushed the door open and walked out without looking back. I let out a bitter laugh, suddenly feeling a pang of sourness in my heart. Lu Xiaoxiao and Ji Yufeng bickered all day over their childhood sweetheart, but at least Lu Xiaoxiao knew who her rival was, who held half of Ji Yufeng's heart. Yet Ji Yuzhan guarded that woman with utmost vigilance. He feared I might use my status as a noblewoman to pressure him, so much so that for 3 years, he never once let me glimpse even a portrait of her. Day after day, it felt like I was wrestling with thin air. Perhaps my pestering last night had dampened Ji Yuzhan's spirits. The next day, the house steward came to tell me that Ji Yuzhan was going to his lakeside cottage to paint for a few days and wouldn't be returning to the estate. That's absolutely perfect. I clattered around packing a large chest full of treasures from my room to show off to Lu Xiaoxiao. She scoffed and dragged me to the back gate to see what she'd accomplished. Damn, that fierce woman actually stole an entire carriage. There's going to be quite the showdown between the Prime Minister's residence and the General's mansion. I was gleefully imagining the spectacular scene of those 2 old men quarreling before His Majesty the Emperor, when I turned and saw Lu Xiaoxiao frowning, her expression somewhat troubled. What's with the pouty lips? Craving some spicy and flavorful dishes. Come on, we're financially free now, let's go splurge. Lu Xiaoxiao gave me a playful smack and chided. Xian, this is still a serious matter. You're of noble status, so your in-laws wouldn't dare say anything to you, but I'm afraid they might take it out on my parents. Then I'll go tell my uncle the Emperor not to let them trouble you. It wouldn't be proper to bother His Majesty with such trivial matters. Frowning, I leaned in and pressed. What? Could it be you're reluctant to part with that scoundrel? No way, I've been thinking a lot these past 2 days. Just letting Ji Yufeng go and be happy with his childhood sweetheart through a peaceful divorce is too infuriating. I want to torment him mentally. Good, I clapped in approval. How do you plan to torment him? Xian, I want to fake my death. I was shocked. Lu Xiaoxiao, have you been reading too many drama scripts? Ouch. Lu Xiaoxiao analyzed it with me logically and methodically. If we simply divorced, those 2 brothers would surely feel no psychological burden afterward. They might even secretly rejoice at finally being rid of us 2 venomous women who forced our way into their lives. But faking our deaths would at least make them feel guilty for the rest of their lives. Our mosquito blood status would then transform into red roses, becoming an inescapable shadow of pain that haunts them even when they're with their beloved white moons, fighting white moons with their own tactics. Listening on, I found myself getting excited too. Xian, just go along with me. Lu Xiaoxiao desperately shook my arm while acting coquettish. I coughed and nodded in agreement. Sigh, I'll just spoil her then. That day, after court adjourned, Ji Yufeng was on his way to inspect new recruits at the military camp. An arrow came flying straight at him. Ji Yufeng dodged sideways and cursed. Which bastard is ambushing me? No one answered. Naturally, fuming, he went to pick up the arrows from the ground, only to find a note attached to one of them. It read, "Your wife is tied up in the southern part of the city, your childhood sweetheart in the northern part. Choose one, the other dies." At noon, at the abandoned temple in the southern part of the city, Ji Yufeng didn't show up. Lu Xiaoxiao's eyes gradually dimmed. Noticing my worried expression, she forced a faint smile at the corner of her lips, but soon, it collapsed weakly again. Why pretend with me? I reached out and gently hugged her. Ji Yufeng is just trash. After more than 10 years of friendship, how could I not understand Lu Xiaoxiao? Unlike my purely superficial attraction to Ji Yuzhan, she clearly had genuine feelings for Ji Yufeng. That spring, radiant with sunshine, she fell in love at first sight with the young general riding his horse through the long streets, and went to great lengths to learn about his background. Had Ji Yufeng been just an ordinary scion of a noble family, She, the legitimate daughter of a general, would likely have gone to force a marriage, but it turned out he was the son of a prime minister, whose family status was no less prestigious than hers. Back then, she had wrestled with herself over and over before finally gritting her teeth and swallowing her pride to beg me for help. Even when she later discovered Ji Yufeng had a childhood sweetheart in his heart, she dismissed it as mere youthful infatuation, never giving up her ambition to claim the singular place in his affections. As an outsider with clear perspective, during their 3 years of marriage, I watched them constantly bicker only to reconcile awkwardly afterward, always assuming Ji Yufeng's heart was gradually tilting her way, until this life-or-death choice forced his hand and he still chose to save his childhood sweetheart first. Actually, while waiting earlier, there was a moment when I thought, if Ji Yufeng chose to save me first, I wouldn't divorce him, Lu Xiaoxiao murmured, her voice barely audible. I pretended to pout and laughed. Then it's fortunate he didn't come, sparing you from ditching me at the last moment. Xiaoxiao, now we're free. If you really like Ji Yufeng's face that much, I'll find you 10 lookalikes to serve you, guaranteed to feel exactly the same to the touch. Woo-woo, Xian, you're so wonderful. Next time I still want to marry into the same family as you. Deal. I clapped my hands. That pretty boy son of the Vice Minister of Personnel has always had a thing for you. Why don't you just accept him? Lu Xiaoxiao blinked in confusion. But he's an only child with no brothers, but his father has no wife, his mother died young, and the position of matriarch has been vacant for ages. When I marry his father, I'll be your mother, we'll still be one family. You're shameless, Xie Ruoxuan. You marry the son, I'll marry the father, I'll be your mom. Lu Xiaoxiao hit me while laughing, but as she laughed, her eyes gradually turned red. I hugged her. You still have me. Ji Yufeng arrived on horseback, panting heavily, only to find scattered pieces of clothing and bloodstains on the ground. A look of horror crossed his face. Xie Ruoxuan, where's Xiaoxiao? I lowered my gaze. My expression sorrowful. Killed by the bandits. Ji Yufeng, did you manage to save your childhood sweetheart? Ji Yufeng seemed not to hear. His eyes filled with shock and confusion, he crouched down, desperately gathering the torn fabric, as if trying to confirm whether it truly belonged to Lu Xiaoxiao. You're lying, I know it. You two are teaming up to mess with me. Even as he spoke, his voice grew increasingly shaky. As if terrified by the slightest possibility that it might be true, I remained unmoved, coldly watching this repulsive man who already reeked of filth in my heart. Xie Ruoxuan. Hand over Lu Xiaoxiao this instant. Fine, I'll apologize to her. If she keeps playing these tricks on me, I'll really divorce her this time. I sneered, pulling a jade pendant from my robes and hurling it at him. Ji Yufeng caught it in a panic. This was the ancestral jade heirloom he'd given Lu Xiaoxiao during their betrothal. Ji Yufeng stared at me in utter bewilderment. Ji Yufeng, let me tell you, from the moment you chose another woman, as far as you're concerned, Lu Xiaoxiao is dead. From now on, she has nothing to do with your Ji family. She is no longer a daughter-in-law of the Ji family. As I spoke, I took advantage of Ji Yufeng's dazed confusion to quietly step back, one step at a time. Xiaoxiao is afraid of the dark, afraid of loneliness. How could I let her stay alone underground? I must go to be with her. Look, Lu Xiaoxiao and I are setting you two brothers free. With my heels hanging over the edge, I felt the bottomless abyss yawn behind me. Xie Ruoxuan, what are you doing? Ji Yufeng finally snapped out of his daze, his face paling in horror as he rushed forward in a desperate attempt to stop me. Too late. I turned around and jumped down without looking back. For a moment, I thought I heard the sound of galloping hooves approaching, and a heart-wrenching cry. Xian. The cold wind howled past my ears. The next second, I was enveloped in something as soft as cotton. Cough. I struggled free from the cottony mass. And Lu Xiaoxiao quickly peeked over to check. Did you really get hurt from the fall? Ouch. Why didn't you add more padding? No time for that now. Hurry up and set this bridge on fire. Yes, we're currently standing on a bridge. There's a small cave in the cliff face. Lu Xiaoxiao and I paid a fortune to have workers build this temporary wooden bridge overnight, extending outward from the cave. After carefully selecting a windless day like today to prevent being blown off the cliff by strong winds, though we do have martial arts experts waiting at the bottom of the cliff to catch us, this time, I'm risking my life for my bestie. So thrilling. Hurry up, soon. The Ji Yuzhan and Ji Yufeng brothers will bring people to search the entire cliff bottom. Lu Xiaoxiao pulled me up, and as I rubbed my sore waist, we ran down the mountain path together. A carriage was already waiting for us below. We tumbled into the carriage, took one look at each other's disheveled state, and couldn't help but burst into laughter. Haha, finally free. Did you tell your father and mother? I'm afraid your uncle the emperor might really lose his temper and order the Gu family to be raided. I told them. My mother even said I should find someone handsomer than Gu Zhon next time, or she won't acknowledge him. Where are we going in this little carriage now? To Jiangnan. I heard Jiangnan is full of talented scholars and handsome men. Amidst cheerful banter, Lu Xiaoxiao and I just like that left the capital behind. 7 days later, we arrived in Jiangnan. The customs and lifestyle of Jiangnan were vastly different from those of the capital. Both Lu Xiaoxiao and I were filled with curiosity and excitement about everything, eagerly embracing our carefree lives as unmarried noble women again. Thus, we remained unaware. Rumors were spreading wildly in the capital that the 2 young masters of the Prime Minister's residence had gone mad. That day, upon receiving the news, Gu Zhon hurried over on horseback, only to witness me leaping off the cliff right in front of Gu Feng. Everyone in the capital knew that the eldest son of the Gu family had a gentle temperament. Never once had he lost his temper, and he doted especially on his only younger brother. Yet when Gu Feng desperately restrained him from charging after me over the cliff, Gu Zhon's eyes turned bloodshot, and he wrestled fiercely with Gu Feng. Brother, she jumped herself. She said she wanted to accompany Xiao Xiao. She said Xiao Xiao is dead. She said Lu Xiao Xiao is dead. Gu Feng cried. Gu Zhon collapsed onto the ground, staring blankly at the firelight in the valley below. Afterwards, they led a team to search the cliff base through the night. Yet found nothing but a pile of charred wood. Facing the pile of charred wood, Gu Zhon grew suspicious. Gu Feng went to the general's mansion day and night, kneeling and begging Lu Xiaoxiao's parents to tell him the truth. Yet, the general's mansion merely handed over a divorce agreement, refusing to receive any visitors. Meanwhile, Gu Zhon, who had always stayed away from court affairs, sought the prime minister's help to bring him before the emperor. Upon hearing his plea, the emperor merely smiled and said, "When hearts turn against each other, there's no need to force it." Yet Gu Zhon insisted on pushing forward. He seemed like a completely different person. Before, everyone only knew this eldest son of the Gu family disliked court affairs. Though brimming with talent, he found joy solely in landscape poetry and literature. Many secretly lamented, believing him unworthy of his noble status as the son of a chancellor, until recently. The largest underground intelligence organization in the state of Yang suddenly surfaced, and the mastermind behind it turned out to be none other than Gu Zhon. He no longer concealed his identity or methods, mobilizing spies from court officials to commoners in the streets, even extending to neighboring countries, all to track down my whereabouts. Everyone was shocked. Many court ministers were particularly terrified by the secrets Gu Zhon knew. Submitting daily memorials to impeach him without cease, the emperor repeatedly reminded Gu Zhon to restrain himself. Yet not only did he refuse to listen, he even intensified his actions, openly using the intelligence at his disposal to threaten these ministers, forcing them to join in searching for my whereabouts. It wasn't until he went mad enough to threaten the Grand Princess, my mother, that she finally sighed. She indeed isn't dead. As for whether she will forgive you, and how the path between you two will unfold, that depends entirely on your own efforts. The flowers and moon bask in spring breeze. Go take a look with your brother. By now, it had been over 3 months since Lu Xiaoxiao and I arrived in Jiangnan. With money to spare and time to kill, we indulged in daily revelries across Jiangnan, as if we'd found a second home. One moment we'd boat across West Lake, peeking through curtains at scholars sipping tea and debating philosophy. The next we'd sneak into academies, seeking out handsome poor scholars to gift silver while stealing fragrances. In our spare time, we'd even flirt with the local dandy young masters. Of course, we frequented those pleasure quarters in Jiangnan the most. Within just 3 months, there wasn't a single male brothel in Jiangnan that hadn't heard of me and Lu Xiaoxiao. After all, beautiful and wealthy women as generous as us were truly rare. That day, we heard the male brothel in the southern part of town had acquired a new batch of merchandise, so Lu Xiaoxiao and I hurried over to sample the fresh goods, and let me tell you, these new male courtesans were all charming and witty. The way they kept calling us sister had both me and Lu Xiaoxiao completely enchanted. One cup after another of hot wine was being poured down her throat, when Lu Xiaoxiao waved her hand and said she needed to step out to relieve herself. A quick-witted fellow promptly rushed to support her. I was just caressing the cheek of a handsome boy in front of me when suddenly, Lu Xiaoxiao's scream pierced through from outside. "What's wrong?" Sobering up slightly, I staggered to my feet and went out to see what was happening. It turned out to be a tall male escort who had hoisted her onto his shoulder, while the one who had been following her earlier was now covering his face and whimpering beside them. Ah, men and their petty rivalries, already competing for dominance. Lu Xiaoxiao didn't put up much of a struggle, her movements even carrying a hint of familiarity. I immediately felt relieved. Even a bathroom break could turn into a chance to scout for food. That's my best friend for you. Returning to the room, I only felt the wine's effects grow stronger. Thinking of how Lu Xiaoxiao had already found her pleasure, I couldn't fall too far behind. Tossing out a bag of silver, several young male entertainers promptly entered the room. When the last one came in, I set down my wine cup and looked up, studying him carefully. With his dark hair tied up and a slender, elegant waist, needless to say, he was exactly my favorite type, the refined scholar look. Hey, you there, the last one, come here, pour your sister a drink, I beckoned, and the young attendant approached with downcast eyes, pouring me a cup of wine with movements that still carried a hint of awkwardness. His shyness only fueled my mischief. I leaned down to sip from the cup he held, then let my fingers brush against his hand. The attendant's ears flushed crimson. He bit his lip lightly and remained silent. Perfect, absolutely perfect. I lifted his chin, squinted my eyes, and leaned in for a closer look. Your face really does resemble Jiyu Zhan. The words nearly slipped out of my mouth before I swallowed them back instantly. The Prime Minister's son was somewhat of a public figure after all. If word got out, it wouldn't be good if my whereabouts were traced. The young courtesan looked up at me, his voice slightly hoarse. Like who? Like my late husband. I forced a laugh. Xieruoxuan. For some reason, the young man suddenly grew bold, grabbing my still mischievous hand and glaring at me fiercely. Ah, this won't do. My late husband was very gentle, annoyed. I tried to shake him off, but he suddenly lowered his head and captured my lips with his own. Our mouths tangled together until, after what felt like an eternity, he slightly loosened his hold. Pressing his forehead against mine, his eyes softened with tenderness. Xianxian, I miss you so much. I was drunk and dazed. Your kissing technique reminds me of my late husband. The young courtesan's expression changed again, as if he wanted to get angry, but in the end, he just caressed my cheek and sighed. At that moment, I noticed that somehow, all the other courtesans in the room had disappeared, leaving only the two of us. Just as I was about to ask a few questions, he suddenly swept me up in his arms, his expression a mix of irritation and relief. The courtesan carried me as he crashed through the window, racing through the night for what felt like ages before finally kicking open a half-closed door and tossing me onto a bed in the corner of the room. Why come here? Do you get commission fees for bringing guests to certain rooms? I kept chattering away with questions, but he remained silent as he drew closer to me. I instinctively reached out to block him, but the moment my hand touched his chest, it refused to obey me. The pectoral muscles feel like Xianxian. The young attendant looked at me helplessly. Jiyu Zhan. I softly murmured this name. Jiyu Zhan froze, staring at me for a long while as if trying to discern whether I'd sobered up. Yet in the end, he could discern nothing. Resigned, he lowered his head and pressed a kiss between my brows. That familiar warmth, familiar movements, familiar scent. When I woke, the sun was already high in the sky. I rubbed my throbbing head from last night's drinking, my body weak and sore beneath me. This young attendant was so clumsy when serving wine, yet quite skilled in other matters. It's just that, looking around now, this room's decor bore no resemblance to that of a male brothel. Just as I was about to rise, the door suddenly swung open. At the sight of the person before me, my body jolted violently. Jiyu Zhan, which means. Last night it wasn't me being drunk and mistaking that young entertainer. The person with me last night wasn't any young entertainer at all. It was Jiyu Zhan himself. I cursed inwardly in panic, desperately trying to get up and leave. Just as I got out of bed, my legs gave way, and I nearly fell when Jiyu Zhan rushed over to steady me. What's wrong? A hint of teasing amusement flickered in Jiyu Zhan's eyes. I pushed him away with all my might, and the smile on Jiyu Zhan's face gradually turned cold. Come back with me, Xianxian. I ignored his words and simply asked, where's Xiaoxiao? She must be looking for me right now. I need to find her. Lu Xiaoxiao. Is she really that important in your eyes? For her sake, you actually faked your deaths together and abandoned me. Jiyu Zhan's expression grew increasingly cold as he sneered. As for her now, she's having quite the delightful time with my younger brother. Jiyu Feng. Bullshit, I cursed. Seemingly shocked by my first ever outburst of profanity in front of him, Jiyu Zhan even stopped his cold sneer, blinking in stunned silence. That damned Jiyu Feng. two-timing bastard who wants both his white moonlight and red rose. When forced to choose back then, he ran off to save his childhood sweetheart. And now he's playing this chasing his wife into the crematorium game. How could Xiao Xiao possibly forgive such a scumbag? As I spoke, my voice grew progressively quieter, gradually giving way to a guilty conscience. To be honest, I wasn't very confident myself, because based on my understanding of Lu Xiaoxiao, she really does seem like the type of woman who'd abandon friends for a handsome face. The more I said, the more mistakes I'd make. So I simply shut my mouth and tried to get up to find Lu Xiaoxiao, but my legs were weak and sore, causing me to collapse onto the bed again. Seeing this, Ji Yuzhan had no choice but to hold me in his arms and console me, saying, "Let them handle their own marital issues. The warmth or coldness of a relationship is only known to those in it. No matter how close you are to Lu Xiaoxiao, you're ultimately an outsider to their marriage." I pursed my lips and fell silent. Ji Yuzhan looked down at me, his expression gradually turning aggrieved. "Xian, even if what you say is true, that Ji Yufeng is a scumbag who's two-timing Lu Xiaoxiao, why are you abandoning me too? Do you have any idea how miserable I've been these past few months?" I was held in a warm embrace, gazing into Ji Yuzhan's earnest eyes, when suddenly my heart skipped a beat. "You too? You also have a white moonlight?" "Oh no," my voice, still drowsy from the night of passion, came out sticky and coquettish, like a spoiled child's. And, there's no way Ji Yuzhan wouldn't notice what's on my mind. Ji Yuzhan was a renowned talent in the capital. As for me, having read too many romantic novels since childhood, I've always been obsessed with talented scholars. Moreover, Ji Yuzhan's appearance was so strikingly handsome that I became utterly infatuated with him. Yet I never truly considered pursuing anything real with him. After all, I know full well that I'm a fickle-hearted person. Not only do I fancy Ji Yuzhan, but also the top scholar, the young imperial tutor, the 7 sages of Plum Grove. How could I give up an entire forest for just one tree? As for Ji Yuzhan, I think admiring him from afar is fine, but getting hands-on is unnecessary. Until that day, when Lu Xiaoxiao came to me with tearful eyes, telling me she had her sights set on the Prime Minister's son and wanted me to help her abduct the poor fellow, I was horrified, thinking we had become love rivals, and nearly came to blows with her. After much bickering, I finally learned that she actually had her eye on the Prime Minister's youngest son, Ji Yufeng. Under her pressure, I sheepishly confessed that I had a bit of a thing for the Prime Minister's eldest son. Men are like food, the more you fight with your best friend over them, the tastier they become. I don't know if it was from that day onward, but I began to harbor a faint trace of longing for Ji Yuzhan, though at that time, I hadn't yet considered marrying into the family alongside Lu Xiaoxiao. At most, I'd just go to the Ji residence to cheer her on as she pestered Ji Yufeng relentlessly about marriage. Those two would start bickering the moment they laid eyes on each other. But I've already keenly realized this is what they call spare the rod and spoil the child. My best friend is so wonderful. How could Ji Yufeng possibly remain completely unmoved, just as I, the third wheel, leaned against a tree yawning? I spotted from afar another third wheel observing the pair from the opposite side. He glanced at me from the corner of his eye, a faint smile still playing at the corners of his lips. It was Ji Yuzhan. My little heart practically skipped a beat the very next moment. He approached with a bow and said with a smile, "I see my younger brother and General Lu's daughter make a fine match, truly a good marriage." I don't know what came over me, but I blurted out, "Then what about you and me, the princess of the Changgongzhou residence? Do we make a good match? Would that be a good marriage?" Ji Yuzhan frowned, looking utterly bewildered. The words were already out, so I simply steeled myself, holding my breath and staring at him unwaveringly, shamelessly demanding an answer. Ji Yuzhan was still stunned, but over on their side, Ji Yufeng and Lu Xiaoxiao had already overheard our conversation. The two adversaries stopped their bickering, and Ji Yufeng came running over, shouting, "Big brother, you always mock me. Now you're the one being pestered by this overbearing young lady. You insisted I marry Lu Xiaoxiao. Well, if you marry Xie Ruoxuan, then I'll marry her." Finally, Ji Yuzhan laughed, giving his younger brother a helpless glance before turning his gaze to me. My heart was pounding wildly. "I'll marry her," he said with a smile. Those words stunned me senseless. I don't even remember how Lu Xiaoxiao dragged me out of the Ji residence. The next day, Ji Yufeng actually came to my house with betrothal gifts, and so, filled with joy yet somewhat bewildered, I married the eldest son of the Ji family whom I had always admired, so much so that I never got around to finding out whether his feelings for me were genuine, or if I was just a convenient means to force his immature younger brother into marriage. And also, was there another woman in his heart? until our wedding night, when I blushed and loosened my garments, he suddenly pushed me away, saying he had something urgent to attend to, and left. I lay awake all night, unable to comprehend what could be more pressing than our own wedding night. Only later did I discover that he had gone to his secret chamber, a chamber filled with portraits of his unattainable love. I know you don't like me either, so I might as well go with Xiao Xiao and set both of you brothers free. Jiyu Zhon's expression suddenly darkened, and I quickly added, of course, you're much better than Jiyu Feng, that two-timing scoundrel. Even though you don't like me, you've always been a dutiful husband and treated me well. Look, you've given me so many things. I know you're a good person, and that's why I don't want to force you in matters of the heart. It was wrong of me to fake my death and run away. But Xiao Xiao wanted to torment Jiyu Feng psychologically, and as her best friend, I had to accompany her. Jiyu Zhon, we should just call it quits. You must have seen the divorce papers under the pillow, right? Jiyu Zhon fell silent. After a long while, he looked at me with a desolate expression. Xian, what if I'm not the good person you think I am at all? I didn't understand what he meant. He seemed to want to say something more, but suddenly, the downstairs area became lively. I opened the window and was shocked to see Jiyu Feng and Lu Xiaoxiao shoving each other below. Even more astonishing was the sight of Jiyu Feng's childhood sweetheart standing nearby. My anger flared instantly. How dare this scumbag bring his mistress here to provoke us? With Xie Ruoxuan here today, no one's laying a finger on my best friend. My backache and leg pain vanished instantly. After glancing around, I grabbed the broom by the door and charged downstairs. The trio seemed to still be arguing, I was certain of it, so I swung the broom straight at Jiyu Feng's head. With his martial skills, he definitely could have dodged it, yet for some reason, I clearly saw him instinctively tilt his head slightly before deliberately straightening it again, walking right into my broom's path. Then with an ouch, he fell to the ground. Lu Xiaoxiao panicked and immediately crouched down to help him up. Damn it, a self-inflicted injury ploy. Furious, I raised the broom to strike again when Lu Xiaoxiao grabbed me. Xian, stop hitting, listen to me, we weren't arguing, we were discussing how to explain it to you. Xiaoxiao, you're just going to forgive this man like that? He literally chose his childhood sweetheart over you in a life-or-death situation. What life-or-death situation? We figured out it was fake ages ago. What kind of kidnapper would treat me to good food and drinks while holding me captive? I froze. Turning to look at the childhood sweetheart who'd spoken up, Lu Xiaoxiao smacked me in frustration. Xian, how could you hire such unreliable people? Then, with Xiao Qingmai and Jiyu Feng's explanation, I finally understood what had happened that day. As it turned out, Jiyu Feng had seen through the so-called life-or-death choice as a sham from the very beginning. He had indeed sent his subordinates to check on Xiao Qingmei's situation while coming to the southern city himself to look for Lu Xiaoxiao. But, he accidentally stepped on a pile of dog poop along the way, thinking that Lu Xiaoxiao and I were just playing a prank on him. He didn't panic much. He first went back to his residence to change clothes, which made him arrive late, but he never expected Lu Xiaoxiao and me to act so ruthlessly. When he saw the pile of clothes and bloodstains, he instantly lost his composure, terrified that there was even the slightest chance Lu Xiaoxiao had truly encountered kidnappers. Yet almost immediately, his rationality swiftly returned. Just as he was about to confront me, I jumped off the cliff. That final blow completely shattered his mental defenses. Fortunately, there was Jiyu Zhon with his cool head around. Hearing this, I couldn't help but blush a little. That faint foul smell I'd noticed earlier wasn't just my psychological aversion to Jiyu Feng, it was actually real. But you kept running off to see your childhood sweetheart. That part's definitely true, you were still two-timing. I remembered this point again. Xiao, you can't be so soft-hearted. I wasn't going to see her for that. It's my friend who has feelings for Xiaomai, and I've been busy trying to set them up. Jiyu Feng grew anxious. After all, Xiaomai and I were once engaged. It was I who failed her. Now that I'm happy, of course I want her to be happy too. The childhood sweetheart was shocked upon hearing this. Second brother Jiyu. It was just something I said when I was little after reading too many storybooks. Childhood sweethearts should pledge themselves to each other, and you actually believed it. Jiyu Feng. Little Greenplum continued to be shocked. Every time I arranged to meet the top scholar, you'd always butt in. Turns out you were trying to play matchmaker. We all thought you were out of your mind. Jiyu Feng. Lu Xiaoxiao perked up instantly. Little Plum, you love reading romance novels too. Little Greenplum. Yes, the armored heiress, sworn sisters marrying together. The more they chatted, the more they hit it off, while I began to feel a sense of crisis. At this rate, my best friend is about to be stolen. though I know nothing about scripts, I know everything about the top scholar. I quickly interjected, Xiao Mai, you do have good taste. The top scholar is both talented and handsome, far better than that Ji Feng. To tell you the truth, back in the day, Before the words had even left my mouth, someone suddenly grabbed my wrist and forcibly dragged me away from the three people in front of me. I turned my head to see Ji Yuzhan, his face wearing a dark expression I'd never seen before. Lu Xiaoxiao shook her head with feigned sorrow and made a good luck gesture. Where are you taking me? I struggled to say. Ji Feng turned a deaf ear and stubbornly dragged me forward. Only when I winced in pain did he slightly loosen his grip. You've always wanted to see my secret chambers, haven't you? Across the 16 prefectures of Yang, I've made arrangements everywhere each prefecture has my secret chamber. Today, I'll take you to see them. Ji Yuzhan forcefully pulled me along, leading me through one secluded alley after another. His eyes burned with intensity, as if he had endless words to say. I didn't understand his intentions, only feeling somewhat frightened. Forget it, I don't want to see anything today, you must see it. Ji Yuzhan said coldly. He came to a stone door and kicked it open with a sudden force. Inside, candlelight flickered, casting a dim and hazy glow. As he pulled me inside, I was struck with horror, for the walls were densely covered with nothing but portraits of me, smiling, weeping, solemn and dignified, shy and timid. Are you satisfied? Ji Feng stepped forward, whispering so close his breath nearly brushed my cheek. I'm not the refined scholar you imagined. I merely played this role to match your preferences. I instinctively retreated several steps. Xian, are you scared? Ji Yuzhan pinned me against the wall with one arm while his other hand began wandering restlessly over my body, pressed against the wall by him. My frightened gaze kept darting toward those portraits, especially when I saw those particular paintings. My face burned with embarrassment. I murmured weakly as Ji Yuzhan's lips already sealed mine in a kiss. It was you who kept wanting to see it. Above me were countless images of myself, while before me stood a husband who had completely overturned all my previous perceptions of him. Though it was such a morally outrageous and absurd scene, my heart began to race uncontrollably, surrounded by those countless portraits. Ji Yuzhan and I became inseparable. Ji Yuzhan said he had liked me since childhood. Back then, he got lost while playing in the wilderness. It happened that I was passing by with my guards, picked him up, and brought him back to the capital. For a noblewoman like me, it was just a trivial matter forgotten in the blink of an eye. But for him, from that day on, I was the only one in his eyes. For over a decade, he had been secretly watching me from the shadows, learning all my preferences, thinking of ways to make me notice him. After discovering my infatuation with the top scholar and young imperial tutor, those refined literati, he began imitating their mannerisms, eventually making a name for himself in the capital as a talented scholar. At last, as he had wished, my gaze began to linger on him, if only briefly. Later, it was like a dream. I never imagined I'd actually marry you. Of course, I wanted to marry you, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon. The next morning, Ji Yuzhan stroked my head and said with a bitter smile, I've been trying hard to suppress my obsession and possessiveness toward you. Afraid you'd be repulsed if you discovered my true nature. After every joyful night with you, I'd hide in the secret chamber to paint your portrait and calm myself. Xian, you don't know this, but every time I see you, I want to tie you to my side forever, so no one else can lay eyes on you. Especially that Lu Xiaoxiao. Listening to Ji Yuzhan's fragmented confessions, my heart was a whirlwind of emotions. I was shocked by his concealment and pretense, yet deeply moved by his persistence and devotion. Ji Yuzhan bit his lip, his eyes slightly reddened as he cautiously looked at me. Last night I was impulsive. Xian, the moment I saw that expression on your face when you talked about the top scholar, I was consumed with jealousy. I know I can only ever pretend, never truly being the one you love, but if you're willing, could you please not abandon me? I can keep pretending for you forever. What happened last night? Forcing you like that, I swear it will never happen again. As he spoke, Ji Yuzhan's voice completely choked up, and he lowered his head. I smiled and reached out to gently caress his cheek. Ji Yuzhan lifted his head, looking at me with some surprise. Silly, I may admire those refined scholars, but I've never considered choosing any of them as my husband. Those words about proposing marriage, I've only ever said them to you because for you, it was love at first sight. Ji Yuzhan's eyes widened, filled with disbelief. Finally unable to restrain myself, I mustered all my courage and planted a kiss on his lips. The four of us returned to the capital in high spirits. Just as the carriage was about to arrive at the Ji Yu residence, Lu Xiaoxiao suddenly shouted, Wait, You guys go ahead first. I need to talk to Shenxian. Ji Feng looked utterly confused, but since he was still under probation, he didn't dare disobey Lu Xiaoxiao. He quickly dragged the reluctant Ji Zhon away. I asked curiously, "What's up?" Getting nervous now that we're back home, Shenxian. Back then when we faked our deaths, we were both determined to never see these two brothers again in this life or the next. Right, of course, at that time. Didn't we think they both had white moons in their hearts and were completely heartbroken, wanting to leave? It's not like we were deliberately waiting for a chasing wife to the crematorium scenario, right? Who wouldn't agree? But after making such a scene, I don't know how to face my in-laws now. Oh my god, I almost forgot about that. Thinking of my mother-in-law's difficult expression, I broke out in a cold sweat all over. When a sister's in trouble, we face it together. I gripped Lu Xiaoxiao's hand. Don't worry. When the time comes, you slap the father-in-law, I'll slap the mother-in-law, we'll each take one. Lu Xiaoxiao burst into laughter, the worry on her face finally easing slightly. Back in the capital, the two of us first sent someone to gather information about the mother-in-law's situation. The news brought back by the servants left us utterly astonished. It turns out that even now, mother-in-law not only doesn't blame us in the slightest, but even supports our separation. Both Lu Xiaoxiao and I were deeply moved, but before the servant could finish speaking, the subordinates heard the Prime Minister's wife say, "She's been saying you two haven't had children. And she's long wanted to replace her daughters-in-law." Lu Xiaoxiao and I exchanged a helpless glance, recalling our early days after marrying into the Jiyu family. At first, our mother-in-law tried to assert her authority by playing power games in the household, often deliberately favoring one of us with jewelry and new clothes. In the end, Lu Xiaoxiao and I simply split all the nice things equally between us. Later, my mother-in-law started nitpicking and complaining that Lu Xiaoxiao and I weren't doing anything, ordering Lu Xiaoxiao to help manage the account books. Me, why should Lu Xiaoxiao go? Mother-in-law, fine then, you go, princess. Me, why should I go? Mother-in-law, then who do you want to take charge? This household still needs a mistress to manage things. Lu Xiaoxiao and I, of course it should still be you, mother-in-law. In the end, she gave up and only urged us to quickly produce offspring for the Jiyu family. Lu Xiaoxiao, Mr. Xieruoxuan, if she doesn't give birth, neither will I. Me, I don't want children, never plan to have any in this lifetime. Lu Xiaoxiao, then I won't have any either. Mother-in-law fainted, wailing everywhere. Every family has its own troubles to bear, but the Jiyu household got 2 signed copies during the 3 months when Lu Xiaoxiao and I faked our deaths. It was said to be her happiest time. She kept winning at card games without fail. I turned to Lu Xiaoxiao. What do you think? No divorce? Absolutely not. Exactly. Hand in hand with Lu Xiaoxiao, we joyfully ran towards the Jiyu residence. Grandma, we're back. Half a year later, at the wedding banquet of the top scholar and his childhood sweetheart, Ji Feng and Lu Xiaoxiao somehow ended up quarreling again. Lu Xiaoxiao collapsed sobbing into my arms. I quickly comforted her. Exactly. The entire Jiyu family only has 2 decent people, you and me. Lu Xiaoxiao looked at me with eager eyes. Shenxian, let's go, we're leaving together. My hand, which had been patting her back, froze mid-motion. Could you wait about half a month? Ji Zhon and I are in our honeymoon phase right now, and I've been a bit love-struck lately. Lu Xiaoxiao covered her face and ran out, whimpering. Ji Feng slapped himself in frustration and was about to chase after her. I blocked his path. What's it got to do with you? A big oaf like you only knows how to add fuel to the fire. I'm Xiaoxiao's one and only baby. With that, she called for Xiaoxiao and chased after her. Behind me, Ji Feng began crying inconsiderately, regardless of the setting. Woo-woo. Xiaoxiao is going to bring up divorce with me again. Ji Zhon glared at him with exasperation, as if disappointed by his lack of resolve. Can you stop crying in front of me? I'm about to break down too.